Fade him.
Yes.
Fade him. Marab all day.
Fade O'Malley. I did do that last night. I saw
Good girl.
our good friend Trent likes O'Malley, so I went ahead and plugged that in. Usually a good sign, especially when he opened up as a dog. Let's get into some college football gold. Every single week, you give us college football gold on the college football edition of Bet On It. So if you guys have missed that, go over to the WagerTalk YouTube channel and check it out as well. VR, I'm just going to let you run like I do every single Saturday. Give us some of that gold.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the NFL, we're able to talk a little more about reasoning behind the games, but I'd rather share as much actionable info with you in college football. And hopefully those of you that have leans where these agree with you, it helps confirm it. Those that disagree, you may take a step back and dig a little deeper or say thank you. You gave us a better line by being opposite. But here's where we're on. These are the legit moves so far today. They took Tulsa. They won at 20 on Tulsa. They even took some 19.5 on the Tulsa side. Dropped down to Illinois over Central Michigan, 17.5 and 18. Florida State and Memphis, that's one of those two-way action. They're laying Florida State up till 6.5. At 7, you're seeing some Memphis buyback there. Not surprised. Memphis, all the hype behind them this year. South Carolina. Here's the key. You got to remember, Kelly. Right now, you're seeing a lot of 6s out there, 6.5 juiced, whatever. If you could buy it up to +7, if you agree with the South Carolina side, and you could buy it up to +7, at -134 or less, it's worth taking it up even a whole point. Because I went through it, I did all the math, because I could have took +6 at -109 or +7 at -134, and it just was a better bet at +7 with South Carolina. Missouri -16, -16.5, another double-digit spread. Laying Oregon at 14, jumped up to 14 and started betting it off screen. 17 is one of those numbers that sometimes you should buy the half a point, depending on the total, obviously. But there are times where, you're getting the best of it by laying that. And for them to then hold off to be able to get that 16 instead of going to 17 by going off screen tells you Oregon's a very strong position. Go down to Tulane, +2 touchdowns, also went under 51 all the way down to 49.5 in that game. 2 more totals early under Washington State, Washington at 55, and under Ball State, Miami, 55.5 and 55. Ball State, Miami is one of those that are opposite public, because that's one of those totals I didn't think would get a lot of public attention. But looking at the back end of a couple books that I have access to with friends, I see so much over on that from recreational accounts. So it looks like free money to a lot of public bettors, but the sharps like that under in Ball State. And then real quickly, we'll go to Arkansas UAB. Here's why I want to bring this up, because I talked about UAB yesterday on WagerTalk today. And this is one of those situations where you see a lot happening where a team gets bet up, and then the other side, they come in harder on the other side. UAB was one of those. But if I had to, as of this morning, circle the position, I'd say Arkansas -21 would be the stamp of the sharp side, what they need. Drop down to Middle Tennessee State, +8.5, +7.5, stopped when it got to a touchdown. Central Florida, plus the points and money line over TCU. Another situation where early on in the week, sprinkled the little small bets on Kentucky at 25, then came over the top with Georgia, 4X, 5X, 6X, what that Kentucky bet was. So it could be a case of early manipulation or just information coming in as the week progresses to change of opinions. But Georgia was one of those where you saw early Kentucky money, but 4, 5, 6X that on the Georgia side. Rice, I gave you earlier in the week. And finally, at the bottom, New Mexico State, about 3 touchdowns over Fresno. That's pretty much it. Also, Kelly, I know you like the Wyoming side. I saw a little bit of BYU money on that. But I think you're on the right side there. I was leaning Wyoming as well. But that's pretty much it for Saturday as far as legit moves. A lot of steam and action, but they're betting both sides of a lot of these games.
And that's a big thing. I want people to realize what you're doing, because on Wednesday, you might give out one side on Bet On It. And as you mentioned, it might be market manipulation. Can you kind of go into that a little bit with some of these groups and what they're doing? I mean, Billy Walters all but made that move famous, right? Going early in the week, bet something that everybody else on the screen follows, and then boom, Sunday morning or Saturday morning comes in and just hammers the play he actually wanted.
Perfect example we've seen all over the board. And if you have the power to manipulate the market, why wouldn't you? So you got to remember, early in the week, limits are a lot lower. Why? Because the book doesn't have the confidence in the number that they have later in the week. We always talk about CLV, closing line value, and we joke when you get it and don't cash a ticket. But at the end of the day, that's the only mathematical certainty that you will turn a profit long-term if managed risk correctly, if you could get CLV. The reason for that is because you're proving you're getting out ahead of the information. Because by Saturday kickoff, we know who's injured. We know who's the starting quarterback, whether the one guy or the number two guy's playing. We know what the coach talked about all week. We know the weather. All the information has been factored into the betting line, at least as much of it as possible by Saturday. But earlier in the week, that's not the case. So limits are a lot lower. Books may only take a nickel where they'll take 5 dimes 3, 4, 5 days later. So with those nickel limits, you could get a total at over 46, moving up to 48, 49. And don't forget, there's a lot of steam piggybackers, guys that look at the screen, follow the screen. When they see the sharp books move, they piggyback those moves. So they push it even higher for these betting syndicates. Then later in the week, when you're able to get down 5,000 instead of 500, you now come in on the under, but now you're coming in at under 49, 49 and a half, maybe even a rogue 50 here or there. And you're getting down 5x, 10x more than your over bet. And again, if you're able to do that, why wouldn't you? And it happens all the time. And Oregon was the best example where not only did I get a message to lay the 14, but then bet only the 16 off screen. Do not let the screen get to 17. So you just little things like that to keep it at a number. And like Kelly was touching on, the manipulation, which happens more in college sports than it does in pro sports, because it's a lot harder to move and manipulate an NFL line than it is a college line where the limits are a lot lower. In the NFL, the limits are so high and the lines are so tight, it's a lot harder to do that, especially on sides.
Speaking of NFL, VR is going to be with us on Sunday, each and every Sunday, giving us out that NFL gold as well. We're going to get to your college football questions with Adam Trigger at the end. I got to let VR go because I know he's got a lot more bets to put in before kickoff here in about 36 minutes. VR, we will see you tomorrow at Greek.
Do damage. Can't wait. Got gold for you tomorrow, Kel.
I love it. Always do damage with VR. We appreciate him and his insight from the other side of the counter. Now, today we're going to have a special guest. I know I told Adam no baseball, and that's because it's college football season. But as VR mentioned, we have a awesome UFC event tonight, UFC 306 at the Sphere. So we're going to bring in Kyle Anthony. We're going to touch on some of his favorite bets for tonight. Like VR mentioned, Kyle, there is a ton of value here because the recreational bettors are getting involved where maybe in a random UFC fight night or a smaller event, they don't care. But this one is going to be absolutely epic.
Yeah, this one definitely has been moving around a lot of interesting line movements. Some of even the plays that we have for clients, we're jumping ahead of a lot of this. So it's been some great spots. And like you said, that maybe the college football slate is not as enticing. I think this UFC slate will fit the bill here.
That is very true, especially tonight. There's some early games that everybody's very interested in. Cannot wait. I'm going to be at a bar for Ariel Epstein's birthday, and I better hope they have this pay-per-view event on. Otherwise, we're going somewhere else. I did bet against O'Malley. Tell me whether you agree with that or not.
I disagree with that a lot. My problem here is that, listen, and to the point of what VR was just saying, that, you know, you have Marab, who not long ago was a minus 175 about maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And really the big line movement, I think, was this overreaction from the market, really looking at there was an injury from Marab that he suffered. It was definitely he needed stitches, all these things. but it looks like it's healing. But once that was made public, it really went to almost a pick 'em price. Now you're even seeing plus money. You are seeing a buyback now this morning. It's back to almost a pick 'em on most books here. But I think that was a big issue where it was kind of pricing me out, but where everyone's kind of forgetting that why this was lined at minus 175. Styles make fights, and for me, this is a nightmare matchup for Sean O'Malley, who wants space, who wants to work his striking, who wants distance, and that is the complete opposite of what Merab does. He will continue to push forward. He will dive at legs for the 25 minutes, and I just don't even think that O'Malley really has the ability to kind of just keep distance and keep space for 25 minutes. He was taken down by Peter Yan 6 times in 3 rounds, while Merab fought Peter Yan and took Peter Yan down 11 times. So I just think that this is really set up well for Merab, and it's kind of why I think that Sean O'Malley didn't want to fight him when he was the deserving person that should have fought Sean, and then he fought Marlon Vera. So I think this is a great setup for Merab.
Oh boy, let's see how this goes. I hate to be against you because every time I'm against Kyle, it does not work out well for me. I will full on admit that. Kyle, real quick, while we're waiting some questions regarding UFC 306 for you, tell us what you've got up for this fight at WagerTalk.com.
All right, so this weekend, I've got a 5% best bet play up, max bet. We're 10-0 on those. Right now, we've got out of the 28 UFC events, we've cashed 23 of those, up over 90 units on the year, ROI over 30%. I mean, pretty much. And once again today, about 4, depending where you're getting it, about 4 of my 5 plays are at plus money. So we're consistently hitting those, consistently, beating the line movement, CLV, all those great things you want to hear. So it's been a great year. Check it out. Got 5 plays up right now for tonight.
I love those CLV trophies. I have 3 of them in pocket for college football Saturday. What could go wrong? But, like we like to say at Wager Talk, it does matter. Just like price shopping matters, the CLV does matter long term. So Kyle's going out there early and often, making sure you guys beat the market. Kyle, is there another specific fight you want to break down? I don't see any questions in the chat. If there is one, ask him, because I'm kicking Kyle out of here in a few minutes. We got 32 minutes until college football kicks off.
All right, so one that I will give out here, talked about on a couple different shows, was Irene Aldana versus Norma Dumont. And this is right now a pick'em price. And I really think that the reason that this is at a pick'em price is pretty much just because of the 4-fight win streak of Norma Dumont. But it is very, very much not that impressive at all. Out of her 4-fight winning streak, she beat someone who is 1-1, beat Carol Rosa, who's okay, but only landed 35 strikes. Chandler, not very good. And even Jermaine Durandamy, her most recent fight was a woman that hadn't fought in 4 years and was 40 years old. While on the other side, Irene Aldana, yes, she's aging, far better when it comes to striking. When it comes to just output, volume, all of those things, the only people she's pretty much lost to since 2018 are all former champions. Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington, a current champion. I don't put Norma Dumont there. I think that this line is definitely off just because of the recency of the victories of Norma Dumont. So I do like Aldana here. I think that this price is pretty solid for her.
All right, guys. Thoughts on Valentina? Kyle, Isaiah wants to know.
This one here, I got to say, at first when I looked at it, I thought I would be leaning, Valentina in this spot just because of, her pedigree, where she, out of her last 12 fights, 11 were title fights. I mean, she has definitely fought the who's who. My issue is she's on the wrong side of 35. She's 36 years old. You've got Grasso now entering her prime. 31, looks great, now trains or has been training with Diego Lopez, who I'm very high on overall. And I just think that this is a great stage for her. And you saw over the last few fights that when she moves forward and she just throws, which Grasso does, it really smothers the kicker. And that's one thing that she knows she has to do. She can't let Valentina at distance, can't have her working her kickboxing. If you get in tight, keep the kicker on the back foot. It's a lot harder for them to throw those kicks, but also you're forcing them in boxing range. And that's really what I think Grasso is going to do here. You've seen money kind of come in on her and giving her to be the favorite here. I think I agree with that line movement here. Really good spot for her. The last fight probably was Valentina, but now we're just talking more time has passed. I think that Grasso looked fantastic. When you're talking about the weigh-ins, she looked like she put on some muscle as well, too. So I think that she gets the job done here, and I think she's the next big rising star in the division.
He is Kyle Anthony UFC on your social media channels. I think I made him create an Instagram. I can't remember. I've been quite the totalitarian dictator about the guys getting over to Instagram. So shout out to all of you guys that are watching live on the WagerTalk Instagram channel. Almost 1,000 on TikTok and 2,500 on Twitter. Again, head over to wagertalk.com, wt.buzz/KA, and you can get all of Kyle's UFC picks for tonight. Thank you to Kyle. We got 29 minutes to kick off, which means I'm going to give Adam Trigger 19 minutes. You guys better ask questions. Otherwise, I am leaving. I'm going to brunch in New York City because I want to be at a bar eating a steak and eggs by kickoff. Adam Trigger, wagertalk.com. He has a 5% pay up right now for today's college football slate. How, I don't know, Adam, because this is the ugliest slate we've seen in like 2 years.
I mean, it's simple for me, Kel, and I've never been more confident going into college football because I stopped paying attention to all of college football. It's like, it sounds like dumb, but it's like when you like make things smaller, I really truly believe like the best advice you ever gave me, and you've given me like incredible advice, a lot of good advice, but the best advice you ever gave me, as soon as I came to Wager Talk, you said you're never betting a soccer game again. I listened to you and I've applied it because if you can trim stuff down to like what you know, you're going to do a lot better. So when I look at this slate, I see a bunch of ACC teams playing. I see some MAC teams playing. Those are the two leagues that I follow. Those are the two leagues that are up in my area in the Northeast that I have, kind of good contacts and info in. And so it's a great college football Saturday. I don't need the top 25 matchups.
There's a couple. Yeah, that's fair. We had a top 25 matchup last night. I was happy with that result. Also glad to see everybody that got to cash those under tickets. Adam, let's get into it. We're going to get some questions from the chat. Similar to what we did with Adam during baseball season, he's going to give me a 90-second synopsis. Otherwise, our producer, Dan, is going to beep him. If you guys like Adam, we gotta really coerce him. Any upset predictions today? Eric Brewer wants to know. Here, Adam, I'll give you my upsets. How about this? My upsets, Purdue. I got +10, now 7.5. South Carolina, +7, now 6. Wyoming, +11, now 9.5. Colorado State, 7.5, now 7. Do you like any of those, or did I pick 4 square dogs with please?
Man, Kelly, I wish we did this show 24 hours ago because I would have thrown UNLV out there. They're a team I like this year. I'm furious at myself for not betting them last night, but I'll tell you what, Cal, that UNLV-Syracuse game might be 2 ranked teams today in a couple weeks on Friday night. I want to throw, let's see, there a lot of the upsets, like a lot of the dogs I don't really love today. So I think I kind of lean Purdue. I think that's one of the ones that you said you liked and have a good number on. I guess I agree with the move, but I don't have any like crazy pick. Like I said, if you asked me 24 hours ago, I say UNLV all day and it gets there. So
yeah, of course. So Giovanni wants to know, BC, this is going to be a really interesting one. I really have watched what Bill O'Brien's been doing with this Boston College team. You mentioned ACC schools. I'm not sure Mike Norvell's getting fired, but this has been a really interesting one. We talked to Art DiCesare. He didn't have much to report on this game other than they were probably going to need Missouri because they saw a lot of BC money early. BC upsets Florida State off that Georgia Tech loss. Is BC back? What is the sentiment there in the ACC? And then Eli Drinkowitz, you and I went to Columbia for a basketball game, and I thought, hey, you know what? Dennis Allen's doing a better job than Eli. I might have been wrong.
Listen, Kel, I'm a horrible salesman. Missouri is one of my plays today, but go buy the 5% play, and it'll satisfy all requirements for me today. I didn't even put a brick up for this game because I bet this earlier in the week. This is a great example where, Gianni came on and he said that, Missouri got some money at 16.5. Art came on and said it's down to 14.5 because of all the BC money. I'm all over Missouri here. I think they could blow BC out. I think it's going to be a total lopsided game. You talk about Boston College. They've definitely improved. So this isn't really, so much like a total fade of BC. But I'll tell you what I think is going to happen here. I think it's going to be a very challenging matchup for the way that Boston College wants to play. They like to run the ball. Castellanos is better when he can run the ball. And this Missouri run defense is not going to allow them to do that. I think they're going to turn BC into a team that has to take some shots downfield. And that's not the recipe for success, in my opinion, for this Boston College team. Now you factor in the fact that they're going to go from playing, the big win over Florida State. Now they have to kind of go out to Missouri. They've got Michigan State coming to town next week, which is kind of a big deal, right? I think that's like an 8 p.m. primetime game. It just doesn't feel like the best spot for BC. Our buddy Dan Lifshatz quoted some tweets from, or not a tweet, but some comments from O'Brien earlier this week where he really kind of alluded to this being like a huge challenge. If you read between the lines, I think he was kind of saying we might be in a little trouble here with this matchup. But I could see Missouri kind of running it up. They haven't given up a point yet this year, Kelly. Not a single point. I do think they give up a little bit today, but I think they're going to score a lot more. It feels like one where they might pull away by like 3 scores.
All right, Adam over here giving out free client plays. He has a 5% play up on WagerTalk.com. B Daddy wants to know Washington -4 versus Washington State. Any thoughts on the line? The Apple Cup. It feels so weird that it's being played week 3. Trig, Civil War and Apple Cup. I always have to give a nod to both dogs. I put both on my list. I didn't get to the window with either.
Yeah, so I don't, like I said, I don't do a ton with the West Coast schools, but I had a play on Washington last week. It was one of the plays that I lost. I really wanted to kind of play against Eastern Michigan, a team I don't think is very good. And Washington really played with their food in that game, Kel. It was like one of those where, they really probably should have won the game by more than 24 points, which was the number in that game. But some really sloppy stuff. Got a punt blocked early in the game, driving late to score and cover. And the guy just fumbled like untouched, just coughed it up like as he was running, like on the 8, as he was in the red zone. So, that was concerning. At the same time, Washington State just laying it to Texas Tech last week. A lot of that to me was like some Texas Tech deficiencies more than I think it was like Washington State being that much better. I agree with like how this was bet. So I think this opened like something like 8, got bet down based on some potential injuries for Washington. And now it started to creep back up. I agree with the money that came in around 4 or 5. I wanted it to go lower. There was a point in time this week, Kel, where I thought about laying like the 4 with Washington. At the current number, I don't know if I would, but I'm not sold on Washington State. I still think Washington's probably better than what they showed last week. So I like the Huskies.
Okay, got a question from TikTok. Sorry, I promise I'm not neglecting you guys. We know you guys are some of the most avid question askers over there. And I probably should have called Errol Epstein for this one. ECU versus App State. Ricky on TikTok has a question about this game. Trig, full disclosure, didn't even know they were playing today. I do not get that far down in the game of 5. You mentioned part of handicapping and what we do is lean into our strengths, right? So for me, it's SEC, it's Big 12, it's Big 10. And ACC starting to get up there with my proximity of being in Florida these days. But man, I have just not looked at the AAC hardly at all. I barely looked at the Fun Belt. And it's kind of just gotten to the point now where I don't even remember Conference USA exists.
I know. Well, it changes all the time. So how do you even remember the teams in there? I have zero personal opinion on this game. I do know some respected people that I know like the over. I'll leave it at that. Okay. Respected money on the over.
All right, San Jose State. See, this is what I mean. I love you guys. Chevy Bra wants to know San Jose State versus Kennesaw State. San Jose State. Didn't they just get throttled last week by a former Pac-12 team?
No, I think last week, didn't San Jose State last week win? Yes. I think San Jose State beat a Air Force team that was quite depleted last week, if I remember correctly.
You are correct. Yeah.
So, and it's interesting here. Again, these are not two teams that I put a ton, like I couldn't tell you really much of anything about San Jose State, Kennesaw State. They're just not like teams that are on my radar. But I do know that last week there was some, Kennesaw State got a little bit of a nibble, like sharp nibble, and they got blown out. San Jose State just like went in and beat Air Force outright as an underdog. But if you remember, Kelly, that was a game. Like that was a game that moved quite a bit. I think there was like a 4-point move to the number. I think it was Air Force having some guys out. So my gut tells me this number is inflated based on those two things happening. Do I want to put my money there? Probably not. But my gut tells me that this is an inflated number and that it would be Kennesaw State plus 17.5 if I was going to play this game.
All right. Any more questions for Adam? Drop them in the chat. Oh, yes. Hawaii, the Hawaii game. Let's look at the spread on this one. I have not looked at a Hawaii game. Sam Houston State is a 4-point home favorite to Hawaii. Sam Houston, I'll say this much, Trig, 2 weeks ago versus Rice, I had him on my long list. And as I just mentioned, I'm like, I haven't been looking at any Fun Belt, Conference USA, or AAC teams because you only have so many hours of the day. But this Sam Houston team ends up winning at Rice. Last week, they went into UCF. I believe they covered. I need to double check that. They did not cover. They got blown out 45-14. Now they're a 4-point favorite at home in Hawaii. There used to be like an old adage, Trig, about Hawaii coming to the mainland. Have we gotten past that? I mean, are we past that at this point?
I think we're past it, but I don't think it means they don't get blown out here because I don't think this Hawaii team's very good. I know they hung around to cover with UCLA last week. I believe that game, and I just want to double check, that was in Hawaii. That was on the island. So it goes both ways, right? Like UCLA having to go out there. I would lean Sam Houston just based on the two results from last week. We know it's tough for teams to go to Hawaii. Like that's just obvious, right? Like time zone change, long travel, Hawaii in a home spot right there. So for them to have to turn around and now come to play Sam Houston just doesn't seem like the best spot for them. So again, I went into this season kind of thinking Hawaii wasn't very good. That's all I really have there. It's not a game I would bet, but if I was going to play this one, Sam Houston -4 would have to be it.
Andrew didn't get the memo. It's not baseball season anymore, Andrew. It is college football season. So, Trig, I asked Art about this one, and he thought that, hey, maybe they might need Michigan come kick, surprisingly. Arkansas State plus 22 at Michigan. Michigan just off an absolute ass-kicking. Does Arkansas State keep it close, or is this a game where Michigan should just be able to run the ball, dictate the time of possession, and win by, 24?
Yeah, that and the fact that I really wasn't impressed with Arkansas State last week. I did catch a good amount of that game against Tulsa. They came back and won 28-24 on the strength of I think they rattled off like 3 straight touchdowns in the third quarter, but was not impressed with them. Would not want to poke the bear today. Like I wouldn't want to go, that Michigan team losing the way they did last week. It feels like another game that I like quite a bit.
I'll say this much, Trig. I played Michigan in my Splash Sports College Survivor. I thought, all right,
you're good.
This is going to be the biggest favorites they are the rest of the year. If they lose, so be it. If they somehow lose this game, but I don't want to mess with Michigan once we get into the Big Ten play, that's for sure. Logan Howard, we're going to take this as the last question. He wants to know about the backyard brawl. This used to be such a fun game. And now both teams are kind of on the downward spiral. Neil Brown's hot seat. We love Pat Narduzzi because he loves to kick field goals on the 1-yard line, which is why I don't like to back him as a favorite. Your thoughts on this one?
Once again, Kel, terrible salesman. This is one of my plays, but go buy the 5% play. That's the only. I'm not going to give that out. Can't give that one out, but I will give you another bet that I made today. I am on Pitt in this game. Pitt's a team that is kind of, was on my radar a little bit coming into this season in the respect that I thought they would be better than they were last year, because they were just god awful last season. And I really like what I saw out of them in the second half of that game against Cincinnati last week. I thought that it all came together for the offense. Holstein looked really good. They came back and won the game on the strength of a 15-0 fourth quarter on the road. So it was a really nice comeback win from them. I think it gives them confidence. I think it gives them momentum coming into this game against a West Virginia team that I don't think is very good. I don't think their defense is good at all. I think their secondary is a mess. I thought that they looked horrible in that Penn State game. And then they played my FCS Albany Great Danes last week, Kelly. And that game that final score was a little bit deceiving. 48-14 final there, but I believe Albany was 0 for 3 on third down. West Virginia, or I'm sorry, they didn't convert 3 fourth downs. West Virginia was 3 for 3 on fourth downs. They still gave up close to 400 yards to Albany, Cal. Can't be doing that, especially when you're going to turn around and go on a road against a team that's starting to figure it out offensively. So I really like Pitt here. I thought the wrong team was favored in this one. This is a rivalry game Pitt's hosting, right? Like these two teams, these two schools, 75 miles apart. It's a big rivalry, the backyard brawl. It's on Pitt's home field. I, for the life of me, cannot understand why Pitt is an underdog in this game. So I took Pitt +2, and anything good down to a Pitt here. I really like Pitt in this spot. I think they get the win.
All right, Adam gave out 2 client plays, Missouri and Pittsburgh. You can go get his 5% play, WT.buzz/AT. What is your new Twitter name? You changed it. I already forget. Adam Trigger.
Yeah, it's much easier, Kel. As you said, it's no longer named after an average golf ball. It is now just Adam Trigger WT on all platforms. So follow me on TikTok. I'm doing videos there every day. It's the same on Twitter. It's the same on Instagram. Trying to post different stuff to each to keep you guys on your toes. So
I love it. There is the bell.
I'm sorry, Trig. I'm sorry.
I had these earbuds in, and that was loud as hell.
I'm sorry.
I love it. Trig is over on TikTok giving out free baseball plays for everybody that had baseball questions for him in the chat. I'm sorry. I'm selfish. It's all college football today. We're going to be back tomorrow. Wager Talk's last call. We've got Chase Michelson from the Westgate. We had such a good time with the Prez last week, and we invited him back for this Sunday. And of course, Gianni the Greek is going to be bringing us some of that gold. Again, thank you to all of you guys who smashed the like button, hit the subscribe, and jumped in the comment section today. Good luck, and we'll see you tomorrow.